The NBA trade deadline made 6 things blatantly clear. First, starting out with the Milwaukee Bucks. The deadline could have gone one of 2 ways for Milwaukee, either making a large move or just some smaller trades to bolster the roster, and somehow the Bucks did both. Trading Middleton for Kuzma was a massive decision, as the front office and organization clearly doesn't believe in his ability to remain healthy, which is a tough blow for Bucks fans, but I do get it. But the part I'm less sure about is the fit and the player that is Kyle Kuzma. Over the course of his career, Kuzma hasn't ever been a stout defender or a great 3-point shooter, and his numbers this season are the worst they've ever been, shooting just 28% from deep. He's quite literally been one of the worst players in the NBA this season, given how large of a contract they have, and in the games that I watched, a lot of his touches come from calling from the ball in the mid-range, going to work in an isolation set, which is the exact problem the Bucks are having right now with Bobby Portis slowing down their offense. Kuzma likely won't be getting very many, if any, of those kinds of looks within the Bucks offense, having to do most of his work off the catch, which is going to be an adjustment period for him. But the reasoning as to why they made the trade is understandable, because the Bucks clearly believe that 34 minutes of Kyle Kuzma is better than 24 minutes of Chris Middleton. And even though I do disagree on that, I totally get it. Then when you consider the fact that the Bucks also added Jericho Sims in that deal for DeLon Wright, that's a massive win. Upon looking at his game film, Sims is definitely more mobile than Brook, and he has flashes of incredible defense, but he has just as many flashes of defensive breakdowns. If he could find the middle ground or just put it all together, he'd be a perfect fit off the bench, especially when Bobby Portis isn't having a good game. Milwaukee saw firsthand just how important it is to have at least 3 bigs on the roster after they went 1-5 in that dreadful stretch without Bobby Portis, as the small ball lineups were not working whatsoever. People have wanted Giannis to play the 5 for years now, but it's just super unrealistic because you're already asking him to do so much offensively, and now you're saying, hey Giannis, go battle with Jonas Valanciunas. Not only are you zapping more energy from him, but the guy also hates playing center and just doesn't want to do it. So getting back another backup big is a great move by the Bucks to hopefully give themselves some backline defense. Then the final move they did at the deadline, not counting the Baldwin Jr. dump to the Spurs, was taking a risk on Kevin Porter Jr. from the Clippers for Marjon Beauchamp. Although Porter Jr. really wasn't the kind of prototype player the Bucks were needing coming into the deadline, I feel like they kind of need him now. Given the fact that you traded Chris Middleton and the team was down to just 2 ball handlers with Dame and Giannis. The lack of creation of the dribble was already a weakness for this team coming into the deadline, and it still definitely is going forward. But to be honest, getting Kevin Porter Jr. for Marjon Beauchamp feels like highway robbery. Even though Kevin Porter Jr. has been struggling this season, putting up 9 points per game on just 24% from deep and 42% from the floor, he's still shown more than Marjon Beauchamp, who just feels like a lost cause at this point, which does hurt to say as a Bucks fan who had high hopes in him. At the end of my Bucks deadline prediction video, I said the Bucks would likely not make too many drastic moves, giving the team more flexibility to make better and smarter moves in the offseason, while still giving this team a chance to compete, and I think that's exactly what they've done. This deadline made the team's intentions blatantly clear, as if they flame out again in the playoffs, this team is going to look very different next season, I can promise you that. The second thing that was made very clear by the deadline is how the Spurs have made their intentions blatantly obvious. Many were calling for them to sign Trae Young last off-season when he was somewhat on the market, but the Spurs opted for the older Chris Paul instead, as they weren't ready to go all in just yet. However, given the level of which Wemby's already been playing at, averaging 25 points, 11 rebounds and nearly 4 blocks per game, the front office has clearly changed their mind. Making the trade for De'Aaron Fox is a clear indicator of just how confident the Spurs are that Wemby's ready to compete at the highest level. And I don't think they could have gotten a better guy to pair with Wemby. Whenever a quality guard gets paired with a big, we're always talking about how that pick and roll chemistry will look. And even though sometimes we do go a little over the top with our predictions, this might be a different story. Fox and Wemby on paper really couldn't be any more perfect for each other when you're looking at their strengths in a pick and roll situation. Fox is is lightning quick with the ball in hand, he's a solid distributor and quality shooter off the dribble, especially in the mid-range area, while Victor can literally get a shot up from anywhere, and he isn't a very hard target to find. If you overcommit to Fox, Wemby's going to burn you from anywhere, so defenses will likely send more attention to Wemby, allowing Fox opportunities off these actions to score. And if the defense sends the extra, De'Aaron Fox has shown an ability to hit the open guy like he did in their first game together against Atlanta, where Fox posted 24 points and 13 assists, leading San Antonio to a 1-point win. That ability to draw a crowd and hit the open guy was put on full display, hence the 13 assists, and the Spurs as a whole looked to play a lot faster with Fox, getting out and running, and it looked great. Fox said that he believes this team could become a much better defensive unit, and I definitely don't disagree with that. The Spurs could genuinely make a run to the postseason, and that's exactly what I think the San Antonio front office wants to happen. Now that they have the second guy for Wemby, it's now very clear that the organization wants to test that out in the heat of a battle in a playoff series, and I think they might just get it. But comment down below whether you think the Spurs will make the playoffs or not. The third thing that the deadline made very clear is how the Warriors aren't ready to quit just yet. Trading for Jimmy Butler for me was definitely a desperate move, as even after Steve Kerr and Steph Curry said they shouldn't make any big irrational moves, the front office went ahead and did just that anyway. The dynamic between Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green in that locker room is going to be one to keep tabs on, but for me, I feel like they didn't really get a whole lot better. Sure, Jimmy Butler is obviously a great player, but to me, this move still feels like a middling trade, getting slightly better if anything. At the end of the day, Curry's 37, and Draymond Green isn't good enough to be in a big three, and that's exactly where he is right now, given the fact that Wiggins is out the door, who had quietly been playing great basketball this season, getting back to his 2022 form. When it comes to the on-the-court fit, I wonder whether the lack of a three-point shot out of Jimmy Butler is going to really hurt the offense or not, regardless of how good he is with the ball in hand. But at the end of the day, nobody wants to see this team in the playoffs, as both Curry and Butler can completely put a team on their back at times. Jimmy and Steph in isolation would be a great fit, but the issue is the rest of the role players. As surrounding these guys, you've got Kuminga, Green, and GP2 who are not knockdown three-point shooters, and two of these guys would probably be starting. Floor spacing had been an issue for the Warriors all season long, and I think they needed to target some more shooting at the deadline, and they failed to do so. So I really don't think this trade is going to be as impactful as people think. The fourth thing the trade deadline made very clear is how the Cavaliers want to match up better with the Celtics in that Eastern Conference. In the deal, Cleveland sent away LeVert, Niang, and a couple of seconds for DeAndre Hunter, who was one of the leading candidates for 6th Man of the Year, having a career season with Atlanta. Hunter's larger frame, better defensive skill set, and equally as good offensive game definitely makes sense, bolstering what was already one of the best starting fives in the NBA. Now, by no means is Hunter an elite defensive weapon, as he doesn't pick up high numbers of steals or blocks, but he is very good at just keeping his guy in front of him, and when you now consider the fact that he's got Mobley and Allen behind him, this is a perfect fit defensively. The Cavs saw what the wing matchups looked like against Boston, and they clearly weren't happy with them, as they were all in Boston's favor. However, I like Hunter's chances of being able to be a good matchup on Tatum or Brown, at least slowing their production down a bit, which is all he's going to have to do with two defensive monsters behind him. He's going to be able to space the floor, and even though he is a bit of a streaky shooter, I think that's okay because they've got Mitchell and Garland who are going to be able to put the team on their back offensively when they need to. This was a move that was rumored to be on the table for a couple of weeks now, and it's one that I definitely think will have a large impact. The fifth thing that the deadline made very clear is how the Raptors are just impatient at this point. We've heard how Toronto's front office are an impatient bunch, clearly missing the glory days of 2019, and they really want to get back to playing competitive basketball as soon as possible. So they pull this trade to land Brandon Ingram, and I'm really not sure why. The Raptors are far away from being in the position to trade for an all-star, as they're just not ready to be a good team yet, and not only that, but it's not going to be a good fit either. The first question that came into my mind when I saw this deal go through is, what are they going to do at the wing spot? I think this means RJ Barrett is now going to be relegated to the bench, which is a shame because he's been having a very good season, and even more concerning is their lack of three-point shooting now. A lineup of Ingram, Barnes, Barrett, and Poeltl leaves a lot to be desired for floor spacing, and I just don't understand why this trade was made right now. The sixth thing the NBA trade deadline deadline made very clear is how the Lakers are going to be the Lakers. Yet again, we're sitting here talking about the Lakers making a blockbuster move out of the blue for a superstar, and this one might be the most shocking yet with Luka Doncic. The Lakers first robbed the Mavericks of their franchise guy, and were quickly able to pair him with a lob threat big man, the kind of player Doncic has thrived next to this season. Although they slightly overpaid for Mark Williams in my opinion, parting with that 2031 first round draft pick, this is no doubt a massive win for Los Angeles. Mark Williams has shown flashes of potential with the occasional breakout games, but he does leave a little bit to be desired as a rim protector, along with not being able to stay healthy, and given the fact that the Lakers' point of attack defense is going to be terrible, those two weaknesses could become glaring issues. However, if we're looking past this season into the post-LeBron James era, this could be a solid pairing for the future. For right now though, I think it does mean LA now have to start Dorian Finney-Smith to give them some kind of defense in that starting five, because the backcourt of Doncic, Reeves, and James at this stage just sounds like barbecue chicken for the opposition. But if you can have Luka Doncic on your roster, I believe you're absolutely contenders, as if the Lakers could continue with their defensive presence that they've been establishing over the last week or so, I think they legitimately have a chance against anyone in a 7-game series. However, with Doncic and Williams on the floor, we're yet to see what that looks like. There's definitely going to be a gelling period where maybe they don't play as well, but if they can figure it out, I think this team's going to be pretty good. But as I said, it's not about this season, and it's more about the future plan of the Los Angeles Lakers, which is genius. And if you want to hear more about this, watch this video next.